Hi, it's Katie, and I have another food prep video for you today. And this video is actually a week late, so this is what I did after my Costco trip, and I will link that Costco haul video down below if you want to see it. But I'm going to start by making some almond milk, so I'm soaking a cup of almonds overnight. The next morning it looks like this, so I'm just going to drain away that murky liquid and give the almonds a really good rinse. Then I'm just going to combine everything in my Vitamix and blend it up. So that's a quart of water and the soaked almonds, and then I'm going to add 2 large medjool dates to sweeten it up just a little bit. I'm just going to cover the Vitamix and blend it on high for about a minute. And if you've never had homemade almond milk, you should give it a try. I think you can make it even in a regular blender, but it works really well in the Vitamix. So once it's done, I'm going to strain it, and I have a strainer bag. It's actually made for dumplings, but it works really well for the almond milk as well. But it was dirty, so I'm just using a kitchen towel. And I'm gonna make more of those strainer bags because they're good for juices and nut milk and other things too. And I'll try to film a tutorial, a sewing tutorial when I make that. I'm just gonna squeeze all of the milk through the bag and squeeze it as tightly as I can to get the pulp inside the towel as dry as possible. That way I get the most out of my almonds. And there's all sorts of things that you can do with that almond pulp. I haven't done anything yet, but hopefully in a future food prep video I'll have some fun things to show you. Once I have my almond milk strained, I'm just going to transfer it to a mason jar and store it in the refrigerator. Next I'm going to package up some meat for the freezer, and I'm using my food saver. I have this roll of bags and I just have to cut them to length and sort of make my own bags, but it turns out to be a little bit cheaper that way. I got these no-name, like knockoff bags, and I don't know if they're working as well, or maybe my food saver's dying, but I'm gonna try with the name brand food saver bags, see if that makes a difference. But I definitely recommend getting a food saver, especially if you freeze things or buy things in bulk. You can use them for freezing things and also dry goods and all sorts of good things. So I'm just going to package up a meal's worth of bratwurst for my family and then seal them up. It really does extend the life of the food in your freezer significantly. So once I have them all sealed up, I'm just going to go ahead and label them with the contents and the date. And something that I discovered after we had the food saver for quite a while is those 2 little clips under the lid is where you're supposed to store a magic marker so you can label your items. So there's a little tip for you. Next I'm going to make some DIY good seasoned salad dressing mix, and I've seen recipes for this where it's just mixed up spices, but I really liked this particular recipe. I will link it down below because it has the little bits of vegetable, and I did mine a little bit differently. I'm going to try to write up exactly what I did here, but I will link the original recipe down below. It'll give you a really good idea of what I did. But I'm just using my microplane to get really small bits of carrot and also lemon zest, and I'm just going to put them on fruit leather trays of my dehydrator and just spread them out into as thin of a layer as possible so that they can dry evenly. And I'm also going to put some red bell pepper, and I tried to use the microplane with the red bell pepper and it was just turning to mush. So I'm just going to use my knife and just dice it up and mince it up as finely as possible. So I'm just going to chop it up, and then once I have it broken down like that, I'm just going to run my knife through it over and over and over again until it's nice and fine and looks like that. Then it's going to go on a dehydrator tray as well. Just spread that around. Next I'm going to dry some parsley. This is parsley out of my garden. So I'm just pulling the leaves off of the stems. And I want to keep the stems. I'm going to pop them in the freezer, and you can add them to stocks or soups or anything like that. They have a lot of flavor. And I just put them in my dehydrator. After about an hour, I just went through and checked them. The lemon zest and the parsley were fully dry, so I'm just pulling them out putting them in little containers, and I'm keeping everything separate because I'm going to measure each ingredient individually. And then I just went through and tried to break up the carrot and the red bell pepper. And then I think it was about 4 hours later, the carrot and the bell pepper were finished, and I just tried to break them up as much as possible. Then I measured out each ingredient and I made up little packets, individual packets. I saw a comment on the original recipe that said if you mix everything up together and try to just take out a little bit for the, as you mix the recipe, that it doesn't measure evenly, since you have sort of heavier things with the sugar and the salt, and then the lighter things like the dehydrated vegetables, you don't get a good even mix. So I made individual little packages. And what I ended up doing is I saw that the carrot and the bell pepper was still kind of large. I thought that it would kind of dissolve in the oil and vinegar. You can see the kind of the chunks of the carrot there, but it never did. So what I ended up doing after I mixed up one batch and realized that is I ground up the final product in my mortar and pestle so that it was nice and fine. Next, I'm going to prep some produce. So I have a watermelon here, and I washed the outside. And there's all sorts of ways to cut up a watermelon, but this is the way that my friend Vivian taught me, and it makes so much sense. So what I do is I take the rind off first. I have a nice sharp knife, and I'm very confident in my knife skills. So if you don't have those two things, feel free to take the rind off after you slice it up and just cut the rind off each slice individually. That would work too. But I just take off all of the rind so that once it's all removed, then I have one nice big chunk of watermelon to work with. Then I just make radial cuts. So I just cut basically in slices, kind of following the shape, and then I turn it 90 degrees and do the same thing. And the reason why I like to cut it this way is because each piece has a little bit of that super sweet core. So everything is very evenly distributed and each piece is delicious. I'm also going to wash some spinach, and this was the triple wash spinach that I got in my grocery haul, and I got lots of great comments that I should still wash it. So I just dumped it in a sink full of cold water and just kind of swished it around. This is the same way I showed how I wash my lettuce, so pretty simple. Once it's soaked in the sink for just a few minutes, I just swish it around with my hands there. And then I'm going to use my salad spinner to spin it dry so all of the water is removed. And then once it's spun dry, I'm going to put it in a plastic container, and I'm going to put a dry cloth napkin in the bottom of that container. So just like I did with my lettuce. Once it's all in the plastic container, I'm just going to put the lid on it and keep it in the refrigerator. Now this last tip is kind of simple, almost so simple that I shouldn't even mention it, but it's very helpful for me when I get these large packages of eggs from Costco to go ahead and take the time and to portion them out into individual egg cartons. And I always keep extra egg cartons on hand from when I buy individual dozens. I never throw egg cartons away. I use them when I get big packs like this at Costco, but I also, once I have, quite a few collected, I'll take them to the farmer's market and give them to anybody who's selling eggs. You would be surprised how much empty egg cartons cost to egg producers, and I've always find somebody who's willing to take them off my hands. In fact, I've even had somebody trade me free eggs for my empty egg carton. So those are all of my food preps for this time. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give the video a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and thank you so much for watching.